though it is covered there in your regular class syllabus. Resistors are in series, resistors are in parallel. Okay? Without knowing the theory of that particular, without discussing about that little area, I think that's not a big deal, that's a class material. You can yourself can handle, but okay, maybe one or two students. I don't think it's worth spending time here for make you understand resistors are in series, resistors and parallel. It's very easy task, you yourself can manage. But however, one particular point, whenever resistors are connected in series, the value of the resistors, effective resistance, because this is not discussed in the class, effective resistance, when we have one 10 ohms here and one 20 ohms here, the effective resistance in between these two is going to be addition, 30 ohms. Okay, this is called effective resistance. Similarly, you have resistors connected parallel. Okay, my dear friends. So the effective resistance is going to be decreased. Resistance when they are in series, the effective resistance increases, and when they are in parallel, the effective resistance comes down. So what happens, Shravani, any of my circuit designs, if I use one 10K, suppose the required output is not that much, suppose say, and I need in my calculations, if I get 8.2K is the right resistor to be put there. But I don't get 8.2, I can't go because I will every time, every minute, for every small thing I can't go to Vijayawada, Hyderabad and get the things, right? Yes or no? That's why what I do, I just calculate. Okay, I have a 10K. I might have some other values also with me, 100K or something like that case. So I just calculate combinations. I'll make sure by putting what parallel to this 10K, so that the effective will come 8.1K or 8.2K. So I calculate this fellow because I want this fellow. In my theoretical calculations, I am getting 8.1K. But however, I have a 10K. So what is that I do? I just do this calculations and I find out what resistor can be put parallel to this, so that the effective resistance will come 8.1K, so that my circuit is well balanced. So that much calculation I do, I just connect parallelly, I will solder on across the same 10K and make sure that they are parallel connected and the effective resistance has come down to my required 8.1, my circuit well works. Are you all following me, my dear friends, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So, because you are sitting silent, I don't know whether you are receiving or going up above, I don't know. Luthri, tell me, are you feeling happy and comfortable? Finding interest? This is a good technique subject. It's worthwhile coming to this class. But however, this is not the case with capacitors. Capacitors, it is reverse. If you connect capacitors in parallel, the value of the capacitor goes up. Capacitance, effective capacitance goes up. It's reverse. But in series, if you keep capacitance in series, the value of capacitance comes down. That is the reverse. And however, we also need to talk to you about the passive component, one more important component, inductor. It's like a coil. Enamel copper insulated wire is wound on a core or air core, whatever. So it is in circuits, it is shown like this inductor. So what an inductor does in the circuit? So I will design in some circuits in CCL3 based on inductive components. Okay, because you need to know about those components. Because in CCL1 we have introduced not even capacitors. I just took care that you don't get confused. Okay, so that in CCL2 I wanted to introduce capacitors as well. Okay, my dear friends. So in CCL3 you will be handling inductors so that our communication starts. Okay, well I told you our general circuit lab is basically to make sure your knowledge goes up in control and communications. So in CCL3 you will have a communication based project. Okay, but today I just brought one or two to show you how the communication works. Right? Okay, as a demo I told you, no? Okay, my dear friends, I think extra points to be covered. I discussed about your transformers, power distribution, and then transformers, and center tapped, and full wave rectifier, and regulator, capacitors, inductors and all, okay. And capacitors are used in two different main functions. One is coupling something and other is filtering something. So I'll talk about later. Maybe CCL do more about capacitors and their application. Okay, my dear friends. Now, so we'll start from resistors. Okay, we have resistors. We need to test them. So resistors are in the values are ohms, kilo ohms, mega ohms. Okay, so whenever you wanted to test a resistor with color code, suppose you can come to an area, whether it's ohm based or kilo ohm and mega ohm. So in the multimeter,
More than mega ohms only.
more than mega ohm resistors can be felt like open circuits too. Open circuits will have mega ohms of resistors. Okay. So this is a digital multimeter. It can measure the ohms also. It has got in the ohms area. Okay. It has got first 200. Okay. So it can measure up to 200 ohms. Yes. Okay. You have a probe. You have a probe. So here what you need to do with these probes, very important. If you keep these probes and then also keep this selector switch in 200, then what happens? You can measure the resistance up to 200 ohms only. It is the biggest mistake a lot of children do, that they just keep it in 200 and they wanted to measure the resistance 1 kilo, 2 kilo, and they come to me, sir, it's not showing anything, sir. It is always 1, sir. They come to me and they ask me. You understand, my dear friends? Why is that? They have a resistor, they are trying to measure the resistance, but they kept it in 200. Where you have told this multimeter to measure the resistance maximum up to 200 only. So will it measure more than that? It won't. Then it will always be in 1 only, showing open. Okay? That is the, and at that time what you need to do, you need to see, suppose if the colors are not there on the resistor. First what you do, connect these two, and then from 200 change to next range 2K. Next is 2K. Even in 2K also you are not finding resistance, you cannot display. And then go to next range. You have a next range 20K. Okay, you have a next range 2 mega. So there are 4 ranges. In some other digital multimeters you have much more ranges. Okay, based on. But at this cost, these are the 4 ranges. That means the maximum resistance which you can measure with this multimeter is what?
2 mega.
2 mega. Minimum is 0. 0 to 200 is this range. 0 to 200 is here. 0 to 20 kilo is this. 0 to 2 mega is this. But whenever you wanted to measure maybe 10 ohms or 30 ohms or 40 ohms, is it good to keep in 2 mega and measure that, or it's good to keep it in 200 and we are more accurate. The value you can get more accurate in less range. The reason they gave you, though it can measure the resistance because 0 to 2 mega, the entire range 0 to 2 mega. But if you are trying to measure 10 ohm or 20 ohm or 30 ohm, so as it is very less for 2 mega range, the accuracy you won't be able to see in the display. To see how exact it is, then you have to step down and finally you see. Okay, and also to make sure your cables are connected properly, or here they are inserted properly, and the contacts are also perfectly alright or not. To check out all this, what is that you need to do? You always go on the low, like 200. Okay, keep it low, and then short circuit these two, and make sure this is 0. Now it is showing 0.9, 0.8. It is trying to self-calibrate whatever. Now finally, it is not going to be less than 0.6. That means 0.6 is the resistance offered in the cables and the contact. In the circuit, it is calibrated. But from the circuit, once again, because the battery voltage, battery whatever is there inside this multimeter has to pass through the cables and return back to the circuit. That means there is a contact resistance,
Not less than
0.6 ohms. Okay, in a professional digital multimeter you will see exactly 0. 0.0 you will see that accurate there. Because I'm just okay, finally. But this range is going to help you to measure the values in some few ohms. Okay, and whenever you wanted to measure kilo ohms, you just range it. Whenever you wanted to measure the ohms, you can go to mega because it has got range of 2 mega. Now I wanted to tell you, though your both hands are open circuited, but still there is a resistance between this hand to that hand because of your body. We need to measure that too. So I just wanted to see how much. Can anyone see what is the reading here? Because I am connecting these two probes with my two hands. Can anyone see what is the?
It's varying.
Yeah, it is good because the pressure I am applying varying. So its reading is okay.
0.6, sir.
That means 0.6 mega. That means how much 0.6 mega means how much? Kilos. Come to kilos and tell me kilos.
0.6.
So there is a resistance in between my hands also. Okay, my dear friends? Okay, that is what, how do we, suppose say you are trying to measure the resistance and it is open circuit. It's just showing only one open circuit. That means there could be internal crack in the resistor. Yes? Or the resistance may be 10 mega, 20 mega, where your meter cannot show you. That is the interesting, important area. Okay. Similarly, now we also need to know about diodes. How to test diodes? Very important and interesting, or not? Tell me.
Yes, sir.
Very interesting. And how do we test the diode? Diode is nothing but one PN junction. Yes or no? Anode and cathode. PN junction. Positive material and N-type material both are doped together inside. So form the PN junction inside this diode. We just symbolically show it, but practically you know by this time it looks like this. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And there is a silver portion here, and there is P-type material, N-type material. This is what you see with your regular diode. But however, physically inside they are like this. P material, N material equally doped together. Here is a junction, internal junction, PN junction. This junction is called PN junction. And now, how this is going to work like, because we have discussed in the first class, diodes will help you to flow current only in one direction. That is in forward bias. That means whenever positive of the battery is connected on the anode, and then only the current will flow through. Otherwise, it's reverse bias, it will not allow. But you never ask me a question, sir, why in reverse bias condition, the diodes will never allow the current? I thought that you will ask me this question. Okay, what is the change happening here when we are connecting negative on anode and instead of positive on anode of the battery? So it is reverse bias. So once again I wanted to talk to you about forward bias and reverse bias. About that. Okay, my dear friends, this is an extra class for you. So here is the battery with me, and here is current limiting resistor. Okay, for example, and then we have a ammeter here, and then we have a diode. Okay. So whenever we have a switch here, whenever you switch on, because the positive is going like this, so your circuit is closed. That means it is anode, and the anode positive of the battery is coming, and the circuit is closed. So the diode is allowing the current in this forward bias condition. So this is called forward bias condition. In this forward bias condition, only this diode will allow the current, because the internal the mechanism, internal the layer, that layer is called depletion layer. What is the layer called?
Depletion layer.
So the thickness of depletion layer goes so low so that the current is allowed. That means in the forward bias condition, the resistance between anode and cathode is so less in the order of few ohms, 10 to less than 12 ohms or 20 ohms. Okay, very less, very less. That's where the current is going free. But however, in reverse bias, this is called forward bias condition. We can call it as forward bias. Because the anode is biased by the positive, so it is forward. But in reverse bias, what happens is very important. It's a good question also. In reverse bias, what exactly is reverse bias? Nothing but very simple. We just reverse battery positive this way. And now this positive will come here, and because it's cathode, it will not allow current in the diode. Why? Because what mechanism takes place here? Inside this junction, we talked about here this junction, no? This is called PN junction. In that PN junction, as I explained to you, the layer whichever is getting formed here, that is called depletion layer. The thickness of the depletion layer is going up so high. The thickness is increasing inside that, so that electrons are not allowed to, because the resistance of the diode, the reverse bias resistance is going high in the order of few hundreds of kilo ohms. So the current is not passed, because high resistance current cannot enter into that. That's where the diode only allows current in one direction, not in the other direction. So currents are not allowed in the reverse bias condition. That's where we can use them as non-return valves in our regular plumbing method. Similar to that here, lot of this particular technique you helped us for so many wide range of applications. Allowing current in one direction helped us in so many big ways. Like AC to DC conversion, we are giving alternating current here in the anode, we are getting direct current in the cathode. So like in the rectification process, and other circuits will come up in the other circuits later. Okay, I'll also give some examples, like with using diodes, what are the kind of techniques we can do, okay? That's important. So in reverse bias condition, if you ask someone like why the currents are not allowed in the particular diode, you can tell them because the depletion region thickness goes so high, the resistance of internal resistance of the diodes goes high because of more depletion thickness, and the currents cannot, because if the resistance in the circuit is high, the current cannot go, because whenever current wants freely go, the resistance of the circuit must be low. But here, because of this fellow, the diode, internal resistance is so high, it's not allowing current in it. Okay, my dear friends? So that's where it's blocking current in reverse bias condition. So this is the, and now it is the time for you to understand whether diode is working or not. And we also have diode characteristics. Okay, diode characteristics that you can learn later. But now, to check diode is working or not, what you need to do, keep the digital multimeter in diode mode. There is a diode symbol on this. Keep the digital multimeter in diode mode. And then, keep these probes on anode and cathode. Okay? And then, see if it is the value on the display is between 0.350 to 0.850 in between. Okay, for example. Then your diode is okay, for example. But suppose if that is less than 50, like 0.050, that means the diode is short circuited. And also one more most important, if you reverse these terminals, connecting diode anode to cathode, positive to negative, okay, they must show. By reversing the diode, it should not show anything. It must be open circuit because it's correct, the current should not go into the diode. Because whenever you are connecting on diode, the internal 9-volt battery of this meter is coming here, and whenever you are connecting this probe to the cathode of the diode, and if it is allowing current, that means what is happening? That is leaking. It is not blocking, it is leaking. So that is leaky current. So with this multimeter, by keeping in particular diode, you can measure the forward and reverse bias condition. Only in one condition, anode to cathode only, this positive on anode, cathode on the, then only it must show the reading. If it is showing on the reverse, also it showing means something problem in the diode, leaking, short circuiting. Okay, that is most important. So you also know about no diode. Similarly, how to test a transistor. Suppose PNP transistor. How to test a PNP transistor? As we have explained about PNP transistor, you have a base here, collector here, emitter here. So there are two diodes in the PNP transistor. As I explained you, are PNP, NPN transistor, NPN. NPN transistors are nothing but two PN junctions. Suppose say, here is one PN junction and here is another PN junction. Okay? N, P, P, N got connected together. This has become base and collector emitter. So what you need to do to check that particular transistor whether it's working or not, short circuited or not, open circuited or not, what you need to do, take base to emitter one PN junction, one diode, and base to collector another PN junction. That means what is there here in this junction, here is a base, okay, and this is base, this is collector. So what you need to do, there are two diodes in the transistor. You need to check one diode from base to collector. They must show you, but in reverse direction you should not get anything, because if that is leaked, that means collector to base is leaking. That should not take place. If that is the case, the transistor is failed. And similarly, it must show you the forward bias condition from base to emitter, because it's anode and cathode. Okay, that's fine. If it is leaked, that means if it is showing from emitter, that means cathode to anode also is showing. That means what? There is a problem. Similarly, from collector to emitter also there should not be any reading. Because cathode to anode and it should not allow. So from here to here also it should not come, or from here to there also it should not come. So if you reverse any of these probes between the collector and emitter, no way, either way it shouldn't come. Then only the transistor is properly operated. It's so simple that you need to understand there are two PN junctions, two diodes back to back connected is nothing but a transistor. So you need to check the two diodes differently from base to collector once, base to emitter another diode. You need to check the both diodes are functioning nice, then the transistor is functioning nice. Okay, my dear? Any of the diode is short or leak or open, that transistor is not working. Okay, my dear friends? Happy? You know the components how to test now. And how to test a fuse. Because there are some fuse also. In some circuits we use fuse also. Fuse bulbs also there. How to test a fuse? How to test a wire? A common sense question. I don't have to explain them. How do you, what kind of knowledge you use? Because I told you here, this conduct, that conduct, this I told. But how do you test? Like suppose, how do you test a jumper on your circuit board? Because jumper also is a kind of conductor on the circuit board. How do you test your track from one point to the other point? It's all nothing but conductivity. You need to check the conductivity. If I wanted to test the conductivity of a cable, okay, what I need to do, you need to put it on buzzer mode, because usually this multimeter has got a buzzer. Whenever these two are short circuited, the buzzer will come. See? You see the buzzer? So if any conductor is placed in between, if the conductor is okay, working nice, then you get a buzzer. Similarly, if you keep any fuse bulb here, then if it is giving you the pip, that means what? The fuse is okay. Because fuse is conducting. Are you all following what I am saying, my dear friends? Likewise, if you wanted to measure any cable, how it's working like. So suppose if you say that, sir, my power is not coming, 220 is not coming there, the voltage is not coming there in the socket, then what I need to check first? From this plug to that particular socket, whether the conductivity is there or not. The cable is okay or not. I can't go and see inside the plastic and see, whether the coppers are connecting or not. So what simply I do? I'll check the conductivity from this pin to that pin. Like we have two pins, no, phase and neutral. So I'll check once for the phase and once for the neutral. If the both conductivity is okay, then the cable is okay. There is some other problem, maybe the 220 volts is not there in the plug also. I'll see that 220 volts. Even after then also it is not coming there 220. That means the 220, the plug connection, socket connection is weak there. I have to check that. Likewise, I'll go step by step and figuring out the problems. Okay, my dear friends. So troubleshooting is very interesting. Till now you learn lot of subject and also including your troubleshooting. So here onwards you keep working, you will come across, say I'll tell you, go to any class, you will never learn anything. You will only have an idea. But when you will have knowledge, when you do something. So here onwards you need to keep doing the things on your own, try with 2-3 people, form like a group. That's what I told you. Suppose Ritvik is staying someplace where if we can develop his classmates or schoolmates or Rajmundry mates, staying nearby locality, they can be, because this kind of classes were not given anywhere else except entire IAP, you don't get all this nowhere. Maybe in India, we don't know. India is so big, I can't comment about it. But at least in AP, I don't think for school level children, this subject brought at school level children, I think we are the first people to introduce this. But however, enjoy this and troubleshoot making on your own.